Tom Quee presents JEHSTICULATIONS, a musical criticism series examining and critiquing the recording career of British rapper Jehst. For more information on the show, visit battlerapresume.wordpress.com.
Trying to keep it high level. Trying to keep it high level.
Hello everyone, hello and thank you for joining me on this, a entirely new venture. This is JEHSTICULATIONS. I know the name is slightly odd, slightly coming from left field there, but I just wanted to get this out there. I wanted to start making it. I guess just say, what is this thing? This is I guess it's going to be 8 or 9 episodes. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to divide it exactly, but around that, maybe around the 10 figure ultimately. But this is a musical exploration of Jehst, and this is going to be my first venture of sort of podcast criticism and kind of, you know, interviewing technique where I'm effectively alone. I'm just going to be doing this solo. It's kind of partly an experiment just to kind of go out there and do it on my own. Obviously, I've done Battle Rap Resume, which I'm sure a lot of people hopefully are listening from. This is on the Battle Rap Resume channel, which is kind of, obviously Battle Rap Resume is the major focus for the channel. And I absolutely love doing it, and it's going really, really well. At the time of recording, I'm gearing up for the Cracker and Heretic episode, so wherever you're listening now in the kind of massive episodes that no doubt have gone down in the future, and already, you know, we're 10 deep already, so, you know, always doing that, but I just wanted to do something different. So yeah, I do Battle Rap Resume with the guest, and then I do a show called Down in the Hole, which is kind of almost over now, effectively, kind of similar to this, really, where I'm going through, in Down in the Hole, I go through Tom Waits, if anyone's aware of Tom Waits, the American singer-songwriter. He and a really good friend of mine, Sam Wiles, who does an Only Fools and Horses podcast. Let's just get all the podcast plugging out the way before we get into Jehst, which is where I really want to start. But yeah, check out his Only Fools and podcast. It's called. He's reviewing every episode of Only Fools. We reviewed every album of Tom Waits. We've pretty much done that now. We're just wrapping up with his final albums. And this show, JEHSTICULATIONS, is going to be a episode by episode. Each episode is going to be a release by Jehst, who I'm a huge fan of. I've been a fan of hip hop for years now, and British hip hop especially Jehst. Though Jehst was has pretty much always been my go-to like favorite rapper. If I was to kind of reel them off the head, probably obviously from Battle Rap Resume, I go for the ultimately really lyrical guys. I really like Big Pun and Black Thought and Nas, but Jehst, you know, it's kind of, I don't want to kind of be cliched and kind of be like, oh, British rap because I'm British or whatever, but there is just a kind of scope of reference in this guy. There's an ability, there's a technicality, there's these productions are absolutely insane, and he has a brilliant career trajectory as well. Obviously he's still going, but this is the guy who kind of starts in the bedroom EP and then gets the kind of wide panoramic release, and then starts to kind of go into completely interesting directions. And his later releases, Dragon Family, for example, and stuff like that, Falling Down, are just unbelievable. The growth this guy's had is absolutely fascinating. And I just thought, why not? I thought podcasts are this kind of territory where you could just do whatever you want. That's the beauty part of it. Like, that's the thing with Tom Waits. Like, me and Sam were just like, yeah, whatever, you know. We like Tom Waits. He's got a following online. Obviously, he's popular. Oh, you know, the podcast went really well, and the podcast went really well to this extent where I just kind of enjoyed really doing it. So then Battle Rap Resume came along, and then this is more just a kind of YouTube kind of thing, just to go on there. Obviously, I'm a big fan of people like Dead End Hip Hop, The Needle Drop, all these kind of video YouTube criticism channels of music. I can't get enough of them. They're fascinating, and no one's going to go and do one about Jehst, and that's not to say it kind of grumpily or anything. It's just to say that it's just probably not going to happen. You know, he's just quite obscure. Like, people will do a Bob Dylan or maybe a Tom Waits in our aspect or something like that, but like a Jehst isn't going to happen. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of introduce that really as that. This is just us jumping in, and today's episode is on Premonitions, which is Jehst's first EP. But I figured just before we get into the whole kind of aspects of that release, we'll get into, you know, who is Jehst. Hopefully you're coming here knowing a song or two, or maybe you're just curious to get into someone new. That's great. But I guess you don't know much about Jehst really, and kind of a lot of what I've learnt about Jehst has been over the past couple of weeks, just doing research for this. Found an incredible interview off UKHiphop.com. UKHH.com with Evil Ed, who was a producer on Premonitions, produced 3 tracks. We'll get onto those songs in a little bit, but from that interview, and from kind of various Wikipedia hyperlinks and dead hyperlinks off MySpace page and etc, and you know, Jehst, there's a Guardian interview weirdly, which is great to see Jehst kind of getting some recognition in the comment section. Echo that. That's brilliant. But yeah, we'll get into it. Jehst is Jehst is William Shields, William G. Shields. He was born in 1979 in Kent. He spent his early childhood in Crowborough in Sussex before moving to Huddersfield. It was here in Huddersfield that he established the Y&R crew. That is kind of his records as well. But the crew were the Young and Restless crew. That was along with Fool's Eye View, who's now known as 1819, and School Friends Passive Resistance. Those who would feature on Premonitions, Fist of the North Star. This is Tahakra, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Nexus 6 and Nomic, I think there. This is all during his teenage years in Huddersfield, and as he kind of got a little older, he relocated to London. This is in 1998 for a degree in social anthropology and law at the London School of Economics, which is perhaps unsurprising for someone of Jehst's reference points. I mean, Premonitions is so fascinating because you see Jehst's knowledge growing. Like, it's not necessarily that he's not coming with some really wise stuff here, but it's kind of like there's a more grizzled mentality on later releases, where here there's this idealism, there's this kind of constant referring to the third eye, and this is a constant in rap, really, isn't it? It depends how far or how present you go. I'm talking, right now we have people like Absol, for example, and the underachievers, and then you go back to someone like the Cellar Dwellers, and if anyone's listened to those, absolutely fantastic kind of, and it is always just kind of the chakras. Joey Badass, for example, does that kind of stuff as well, and this is what we have. So maybe this kind of social anthropology law thing, especially the social anthropology stuff, although Jehst will kind of hark about injustice and those sort of ideas much more loudly on his later releases when money becomes much more an option. But here there is this kind of it's teenage years stuff, so it is kind of very optimistic and very gripping if you know where he goes. But even if you're just experiencing this as a new listener, you're just trying to check out a new rap EP, and Premonitions is a fantastic one to get started with. So yeah, during this time, Jehst was offered that idea, and well, before we get onto that, we should maybe go on to the Evil Ed. As I mentioned before, Evil Ed is the producer on Premonitions, works on quite a lot of stuff there, and he entered the scene in 1997. He meets Jehst before Jehst goes to London, go to LCE. It's in 1997. He met Jehst in Manchester. They've been doing sets, and they sort of came across each other. They bumped each other apparently in a place called 98th and 4th Wave Records in Huddersfield. Evil Ed was playing a demo tape that he'd done with some MCs, and they got chatting, and it kind of Jehst recalled him from some other record, and eventually Jehst would go round to Evil Ed's. They record some freestyles together, some stuff over beats they've been making, and at the time Jehst was in the process of making Premonitions and got Evil Ed involved in the production. And as I said, we'll go kind of into the lyrics of the tracks and the actual songs themselves a bit later on, but just in this context introduction, we'll just talk about the songs that he produced. Evil Ed produced Liquid Diction. He's not sure, he says in the interview, he's not sure where that comes from, the actual sample, he can't remember, because this is very early in his career as well. He actually finds a lot of the beats dated, which I can feel, like sonically the album reminds me slightly of Infinite by Eminem, the debut, which I think is a fantastic album. Actually, I really enjoy that album. I think from top to the bottom there's a great, I mean, people say it lands like Nas, does it? I never really heard that. Or AZ is the other one that's kind of flaunted around as well. I can kind of get that. But I mean, even with the rose-tinted glasses of how big Eminem was to become, and Slim Shady and all that sort of stuff, like the technique is fantastic. And I think especially like someone like myself, who loves battle rap and loves bars and kind of like lines that are original and attack you, the kind of Chino XL kind of wordplay there. Like Eminem is fluent in that, by Infinite, and Infinite's incredible, and Premonitions as well. Maybe he's not as polished as he would be Jehst lyrically, where Eminem is already kind of like the diamond in the rough at that point. But I think the beats here are absolutely fantastic, and Evil Ed again is on Liquid Dictions, also on Deadly Combination with Tommy Evans, who's a kind of British hip hop alumni there. And Deadly Combination is a Jawa theme tune, the theme music from Star Wars, and then we have the instrumental that closes the album, India, which apparently comes from some Bollywood soundtrack that Evil Ed would found for £1 in a charity shop. So again, that kind of plays testament to these early rootsy kind of backing for Premonitions. But it's a brilliant tape. And on the sleeve, apparently, it says that Premonitions was recorded and mixed at Pleasure Based Studios in Leeds. It was apparently a professional studio, according to Ed, and it cost Jehst quite a lot of cash. And apparently, the pressure of paying for that time resulted in some stress, especially if MCs, and there are some guest MCs on this, maybe 3 or 4 tracks. It isn't something that Jehst would necessarily do that much. I think High Plains Drifter maybe has 1 or 2 tracks, like the trilogy there, and People Under the Weather, or one of those kind of later tracks has that. But I don't think Dragon Family has anything, and I think Falling Down has 1 and 2 as well. He's not one of these rappers that kind of like relies on that, or kind of like uses it as a crutch, so he has to just one verse a song, I know that Falling Down has tons and tons of like long songs and fantastic verses. Can't wait to get to those later on. But we're on Premonitions as it are. But so yeah, there was this thing where it was just this trouble for all of them working through. But it's the first record, and that comes with a learning process really. Evil Ed again says that he could have made some better beats and the way they were mixed. But this is how these things come about, and this is one of those great kind of relics of the late 90s that just sounds so perfect. And I only really started listening to it properly over the past couple of months when I was kind of gearing up for this. It wasn't something I was familiar with on the same level as a Falling Down or any of his other releases, or even like the stuff he did with Stick of the Dump recently, or just, it's fantastic. This guy, when he guest verses, they're just terrific, you know. And Evil Ed was speaking directly about Jehst himself rather than recording, and he was asked what was Jehst like, and he said, quote, "He was very lively, always rushing around, young and restless like the label name, trying to hook up music stuff, recording, doing shows, going to gigs. When I first met him, I think he was in the process of some court case over some graft he'd been caught doing. He had a lot of energy and could be challenging and confrontational at times with strong opinions. A lot of drama and arguments with people, probably stressed because he wanted to get the music career off to a start. It's that kind of attitude that goes with someone who has a lot of ambition." And he was speaking about the actual creative process of doing Premonitions, and he said, quote, "It was my spare bedroom in my flat in Huddersfield. It could be smoky at times. There was mad scribbling going on and smoking and drinking, but only parts of that process happened at my place. It was rare the whole crew would be round more than just one or two of them at a time. But there was a time when there was most of Y&Air there. Apparently, this is according to the interview, Evil Ed still has a freestyle tape of people like Jehst, Asafia, Nomic, and a few others that he just put beats onto, and they do two sides of a D90 tape, then just practicing verses and freestyling. So that is, I can't say we're ever going to hear that, to be honest, even if they do some sort of like Y&A bonus, you know, huge kind of blowout. That would be fantastic to hear, but I can't see that happening. But still, I mean, it's testament to this. Jehst, as Y&R states, is this kind of personality, and it's coming across throughout this disc. Like, this is a real gauntlet, this is a real throwdown. Like, British hip-hop is unfortunately not something that I would outwardly associate being like lyrical, in the sense of kind of like it's dominated by grime now, but I think even back then there just wasn't that kind of like expansive mind, kind of street, dare I say, conscious poet, you know, of the kind of 90s hip-hop, all that kind of luxurious wordplay and that kind of over-the-top character stuff. Or it's definitely not what I was hearing. I should say that, like, I do kind of know hip-hop music decently, but like the more you kind of know it, the more you realise you don't know it. So I'm sure there were these people around, but for me, that was what I so loved about Jehst. It was the freshness, it was the intelligence, it was the attack. And as we just go now into Premonitions itself, it'll probably just worth saying that kind of I'm interested how I'm going to tackle these songs. Like, obviously I have my notes, but with the Tom Waits thing, the songs have so many instruments, so many themes, so many lyrical ideas about them. Not to say these songs don't have that, but they definitely are more beat-based, they're more hook-based, they're more kind of like, you know, the scratching in the choruses. There's a familiarity in the structure that maybe is less reliant on, say, the folk or the kind of spaced, like, demonic jazz that Waits is often, or, you know, kind of like the subtle farm songs. Like, it doesn't really have that, and like Jehst's later career certainly does, and this does have elements of complexity to it. And it is complex. It's not to say it's not kind of a well-packed vehicle, but, you know, by the nature of a sample, it is repetitive. So it's just interesting. I'm kind of talking out loud. Obviously, I'm talking out loud the whole time here. It's interesting not being without a host or a safety net, but, you know, it's not too hard at the moment before we get into the tracks themselves. But you get to that point when you're talking about the music, and you just want to know, like, what am I saying that's new? Like, how am I speaking about a rap song, a soliloquy, going after each other, you know, that kind of thing. There isn't kind of an instrumental break. There isn't a solo, at least in these tracks, you know. But Jehst is always one to expand himself, and that's going to be part of the fascinating journey. But we'll jump in the first song now. The first song, which interestingly is a instrumental, it is the actual the song that opens the podcast that I've chose to sample as the little theme tune. That's Eye Level, and it's a very interesting song, actually. It's about 90 seconds. It's very relaxed. You have the kind of the burbling bass underneath. There's a busy, almost jazz band aspect to it. The cymbal crashes coming out there. There's a fantastic world. There's a sense of juxtaposition. There are these kind of harsh, brittle chords that resolve into this softer release that eventually gives way to the drums coming in, and just this omniscient narrator kind of sample, just trying to keep it and just kind of like repeating over and over again this mantra to indoctrinate. There's a funniness to it, there's an irony, especially on repeat listens, because you realise that the album is more third eye level than eye level. Like, it's never about kind of keeping your head down in a 9 to 5 and understanding the grind and the tribulations. It's, you know, and it's something more explicitly detailed on later songs like Silver Lining, for example. But it's anyone that's listened to Jehst know that throughout Jehst's work there is this sense of accessing the higher existence and the planes and moving onward and kind of a world beyond anything we see. And it's, you know, again, like the Ab-Soul idea, it's a constant trope within hip-hop. It's a fantastic intro track. It's incredibly spacey. There's a sense of room in the song. There's a sense of entrance. Like, you know, kind of opening a rap album, opening any album with an instrumental can be fraught. There's definitely nothing wrong with that, and it can definitely work in a lot of cases. Like, you know, Deja Entendu by Brand New do it absolutely fantastically, and a whole host of Steely Dan albums as well. But like in the case of hip hop, it can be, you know, slightly pretentious, which is kind of the point of hip hop. It's kind of why I love it, because it's really, really pretentious. But I think, instrumentals is something that Jehst rocks with, and it's not just kind of the use of an interesting sample to go over. There's a sense of a composition, of construction. There's kind of a resonance in the fact that this old sampling structure was actually kind of like pressing a button and cutting off a beat, and kind of, it wasn't played as it were, it's kind of manipulated through. And the majority track just has so many of these moments that are so irresistibly Jehst. It relays you to the artifice, but it's beautiful and it's interesting, and that thing stays with, that sample stays with you throughout the album, and or the EP. And I really like the fact that India, which we'll get into the closes it up, wraps it up. So we start and we finish both in this instrumental wordless realm that just wraps up the kind of existential yearnings of Jehst so well, the kind of mythic Atlantean landscapes this guy conveys. But we'll get onto our first actual listen. We'll get onto our first actual words of this guy, and we move into Liquid Diction, which, as I said before, was produced by Evil Ed, and this is a murky, grubby pulse of a track. It's tense. There's a sense of the gauntlet being thrown down throughout. It's a great display of Jehst's technical prowess. But our first taste of him comes like 2 minutes into the whole thing. We have the entirety of Eye Level, and then we have like 30 seconds intro to Liquid Diction, and then it just comes in with these intricately weaved words with some fantastic internal rhymes, a real kind of like show of colours to the listener to demonstrate who he is, and a lot of stuff that we're going to hear before, the perfect mix between the old culture and the new culture. So he talks about trend or no trend independent, defending the remnants of the long forgotten culture of art, dance and song. I start to advance beyond the norm, the new form. The children of the corn become riders of the storm. So there is this kind of melding of the two worlds, this kind of harking back to the older mythology, and then obviously kind of the more resonant Doors references and Stephen King, and it's something that happens more explicitly in later Jehst. But all of this is just him just demonstrating the power that he has on the microphone, and the way that he can grip your attention, and just everything is spelt out in such kind of like totemic final imagery. It's beautiful. There are lots of things to ponder and saviour. There's a sense of rebirth, references to the old world, layer upon layer. This simple liquid diction that I dote on is only a thimble full of fluid from the emotional ocean that I float on. Romantic notions I wrote on dead trees. I retrieve the skulls and breathe below the Dead Sea. Surface, liquid lung, liquid tongue. So there is just that kind of thatch nature to the words, the fact that he kind of wrote on dead trees and breathed below the Dead Sea, and I just love the reference points that he goes for there. The production is so dank and dark. It's something from like the 36 Chambers. There's a sense of a menace, a real sense of unease engendered around the rapper. And apparently, I'm not saying this happened in this song in particular, but it's just an interesting excerpt from the actual from the interview with Evil Ed, and he was saying there was apparently a fight in the studio over one line in one verse. He wouldn't say which one it was, so I'm just kind of putting this interview here for no real reason other than I thought it was interesting. I'm not saying that it actually was this song. It probably was a song where he shares the mic, if anything, because he was just kind of fight over it. But he said that, quote, but it was over delivery of one line, and every time I hear that one line, I can remember the fight, the drama, me and Nomic, the calm ones trying to keep the peace. And, for as groundbreaking as this song is, and this definitely isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it does have the kind of scratches in the chorus of a hip-hop song, someone saying something, a typical gear towards enlightenment that anticipates capital C's in some ways. Interesting. Jehst mostly sings his own hooks, and here we have kind of a mix of that. Now it's a little bit more standard. It's nothing wrong with that. You've got to understand the environment this comes from, and it is very enjoyable. I'm not saying it's kind of caustic to my ears. It's definitely a lot better than a lot of the kind of half-hearted kind of hooks that you'll get later on in hip-hop. This is definitely full-throated and instrumental, full-throated and enjoyable. But there are some more simplistic affectations, but this is juvenilia, as it were, in the grand scheme of Jehst, and we aren't to look at these and roll our eyes. It shows a great command of writing and a very exciting, again, it's a sense of the narrator, it's a sense of the viewer, it's a sense of gripping the listener and pulling them in, and this is a very, very fantastic track. It runs so smooth, it's such an exciting listen. I tread the righteous path through chaos, my medium, this mic, I pass through the seance, I'm the spirit. You sense my presence, then you're touched by my essence. I clutch the pad and pen, the chosen weapons. So pad and pen, chosen weapons. Anyone who's familiar with kind of Unanimous of Don't Flop would maybe feel some similarities in those rhymes there. And I'm not going to say that it's all golden, and that stuff I still like because it's still delivered with conviction. It's delivered in an exciting way. But I think Deadly Combination which we move on to, which, as the title would say, is a song in which kind of Jehst, it's a double header, as it were. It's kind of not a distant relatives where kind of Nas and Damian Marley kind of go in verse each, but which they kind of, I mean, the annoying thing about that album was they only seem to do that in like one or two songs, and the rest of the songs was kind of hook verse, or kind of they each do a verse or something. But I mean, nonetheless, distant relatives. What a surprisingly good album. Not that I thought it would be bad, but it's just fantastic. I need to go back and listen to that one. And Tommy has this impressive way of keeping it conversational. He's got a wide expression vocally, but he still retains quite a fantastic flow. There's kind of the character almost of an ODB, the way the beat seems to stretch when he kind of stamps on it, you know. And Tommy has that as well. My sonnets sound like comets when I attack. My freestyle leaves a 3-mile crater at the equator from the deep impact, a natural disaster and rapid attack. No animal, vegetable, or minerals left intact. I really like that, and the beat, as I mentioned before, is the Jawa theme from Star Wars, sped up slightly, and it does have kind of a R.A. the Rugged Man woo kind of feel. It's, you know, slightly cheesy maybe, but it's got kind of a clunk ahead of a bass line, if you know what I mean, and Jehst really makes the most of it. In direct reaction to Tommy before him, he comes across as very disciplined, and we have the continuation here of those themes. As you know, the best parts of the songs are kind of the great imagery with a kind of outward bend to kind of looking to further off horizons, and the intro of the second verse is fantastic. I spar with Mars and discard those who sell out for fame. I rearrange the stars so they spell out my name. Then at night time, my pseudonym illuminates black skies. And later on, he kind of has this great image of retreating to the moon as the world is kind of overheating and global warming's taking over. I'll retreat to the moon and watch evolution repeat. The elite, I'll battle your whole fleet with no beat. And it's this constant appeal that I love of the kind of third eye, mythological, the Terence McKenna, you know, the yearning above. Again, it's cliched in rap, but Jehst does it so well. And this becomes just one weapon in his arsenal later on, but Premonitions does rely on these kind of ideas. And it's all very raw. He comes with a fantastic sense of perspective. He doesn't speak too much in kind of formulaic terms, as it were. Like, it's original treading. It's just kind of like the world that he's in. But I really enjoy Deadly Combination, and I think that the beat, like I say, does have a kind of RA feel to it. It could be like one of those beats that, you know, people comment their verses to on YouTube. Like, it has that kind of very accessible kind of like fuddy-duddy kind of thing, and it's a good track. The next one is a track that really surprised me. The Jehst that I'm so familiar with was not this album. The Jehst that I was familiar with was his kind of later stuff, and this one is so positive. This is Silver Lining, the fourth track. The whole beat and production to this is terrific in a clanky, janky bedroom kind of way, but there are some brilliant touches that mark it out as good Jehst production, you know, especially Falling Down Onward, when the music transcended the standard beat format to be textured and creased and watermarked. And for instance, you know, these delicate harp strums beneath the heavy drums. There's this uplifting, almost SNES core mix of lumbering bass and reverse backwards MIDI synth pads. Like, it's got this, you know, and the lyrics come in, and Jehst is kind of talking like this. He's kind of spaced out, that kind of Mike Skinner world before the streets even. This is Silver Lining. It starts with, reality seems to be nothing more than a watered down dream to me. My thoughts are now free to see scenery, only apparent to the author. Sunshine defines my aura as I walk on the tranquil, transparent waters that led to the shore warm sands of my formal timeline. I dine on fine foods, and, you know, you get the kind of very, very paper people mache, like he's opening it up and everything's kind of linked together. There are some fantastic moments in the pre-chorus when the harp kind of just dwells in there. It does have that kind of doe-eyed stoner, you know, maneuver through dreams to redefine reality. That's one of the hooks, one of the ad-libs, but the flows are wonderful. It's addictive and compelling. His head's light like a dove's feather. The beat, the whole flow is just off kilter and stealthy and slightly different to anything we'd expect before. Kind of the eye level, the intro track really promised something going outside the borders of the conventional. And I think that Liquid Diction and Deadly Combination were fun. They were really good songs, you know, great exhibition workouts for Jehst and Tommy. But this song is just Jehst really showing the artistry available to him. You know, an example is the beginning comes in with a loop sample and the bass, and Jehst just seems to kind of swan in, like, you know, there's a real comfortableness with the track. There's a real awareness of what's written, what's going on, how to present this world to us. It's absolutely fantastic. There's clipped rough production and the little ad libs, you know, levitate just keeps coming through, and this word is just kind of pulled apart and used in a, you know, just rejuvenative like ascension form, and there are just splurge of beautiful images and ideas. My thoughts are now free to see scenery only available to the author. The arrowhead embedded in my marrow bone, my bone marrow, my travel by Scrabble board babble. There are these kind of like, tongue twisters. It's a hugely uplifting track. A place on my silver tongue is worth gold weight. Similar to a song from his later album, I forget the song now, but my silver tongue spits gold bars was a great Jehst thing that I like there. But yeah, it just kind of, the first two songs failed to capitalize on that transcendental promise, but this is a terrific bounty, great track. But we'll push on to Life Imitating Art, which is another good song. I mean, the thing about when you listen to these debuts is that you can't hope that they're all going to be masterpieces, because the chance of releasing a great album anytime ever is very, very hard. And there's always going to be pop marks on your record throughout your career, whatever you release, I'm sure. And there are these tracks on here that are more kind of like, I don't know if these are just stock. Like, there doesn't seem to be as much ground being broken as on Silver Lining. I mean, Life Imitating Art is not necessarily the worst song on the album. We will get to that. It's not even necessarily a bad song. I mean, it kicks off the second side. You got the heavy, sappy drums. The long, strung-out strides of the strings. Lexis is Lexis is a guest on here. He's one of the voices, and when you listen to these early rap albums, there are guest stars, kind of like AZ on Nas. I mean, I know he kind of had his career with Do or Die later on, but the kind of people who come in with these guest verses, you're like, who are these guys? And like, sometimes it'll flourish. Sometimes I remember, again, not that infamous, but Method Man on the What was kind of how I kind of got into the Woo. I thought it was incredible. Lexis, I'm less likely to check this out, but Jehst is here, thankfully, to kind of spill fantastically across this landscape, which again feels apocalyptic. The broke pocket economist, as he says in China Shop Tourist, but just spills above. Fuck Father Time on the bastard in the family, finding immortality, finding comedy and tragedy in order to live with the chaos on the border and life of death. Every breath is a seance that connects. Empathy, energy, sex, blood, sweat and tears, fears manifest. So again, it's that kind of like dragon rap, but I find it quite satisfying, and this is the world that Jehst can easily occupy and go inside and create compelling imagery. Lex is less so. The beat does him no favours. It's slightly lethargic and never picks up pace. I mean, this leaves it to the MCs to operate in these wide spaces, and it's not a song to be despised, but this is only released on vinyl. I don't believe this CD, Premonitions, is available as a CD. At least I haven't been able to find it online or any record of it. Maybe it is. But this was the opening track of the second side, and I don't know, maybe that explains it slightly, because it just feels very kind of, empty. There doesn't feel as much promise as there were with the opening side here, and Jehst did well, with the first side. The first side's absolutely fantastic. Opening with Eye Level, closing with Silver Lining. You got two combative tracks in the middle. Fantastic. This song, less so, though. I do respect the later verses. Jehst, the song's called Life Imitating Art, and Jehst recognize, he declares himself science fiction. There is a refreshing recognition within this song that the title heralds to the fact that Jehst, like Tom Waits, have done the podcast before, relies on the cliche of the music they exist within to create. So with Waits, you have the kind of like, the drunken barfly, and in Jehst you have, this is something he'll definitely explore more on Return of the Drifter, you have the kind of dime store novel, the Wild West, the sci-fi, the conspiracy, the government orders, the third eye. He says that he's a stock character, these are cliched storylines. He says this in this song, and it's refreshing. To have that meta awareness, to have that kind of sense that yes, this is kind of relying on slightly stock ideas, but what he's saying with them is the compelling thing. And there's not too much in this song to recommend if you are like kind of just getting into Jehst and want to check some new stuff out. But it's an important part of his lineage, the entirety of this intro EP, and for that reason alone, and for that kind of looking at the man in the mirror-ness at the end, I can forego the slightly uninteresting beat here and recommend the song. But I would say as well, if you do want to get in contact, please email us, battlerapresume@gmail.com. This is on the Battle Rap Resume YouTube channel. Please subscribe to that YouTube channel as well. If you want to check out any of the interviews, we've had 10 people on so far. We've got lots more people coming up. We've had Chiller, we've had C Major, Shocks the Rebel, Crafty, Most Prob, Bard, Soul, all these people. It's been fantastic. Press One, E Farrell. I'm going to keep going on naming them, but no, seriously, thank you so much to everyone that's been listening to that. And yeah, check out the show. And if you like this show as well, please, give us a thumbs up, give us a comment. What do you think about Jehst? Please comment in the comments below, and we'll discuss songs. And I would love to hear what everyone thinks and read out emails and all that good stuff. I appreciate any fellow fans of this guy. He's incredible, and I think the next song proves that. Independent is another fantastic dose. It's drinking from the same well as a kind of Deadly Combination, Liquid Diction. It's another kind of backyard beat. There's great fantastic movement with this song. Heavy dub rhythm, sounds like a kind of bass guitar is being played at a high fret note. It's got the dum dum. The piano's always there, kind of moving in and out. The eaves, it's got the same kind of slightly vague imagery that Jehst would sharpen in later releases, but it's a really good listen. It's got a great frequency tap, as I said, and the vocals is his female vocals behind it. They talk about the hour at hand stole my candy and my Lexus. Jehst's second verse is absolutely terrific in this as well, where he's kind of just talking about the aims that he has and the way that the police are kind of getting in on him, and I've got plenty, but basically the kind of idea that his freedom is a spliff, and the police are coming after him and trying to smoke from it. It can be a little cliched slightly at times, but there is some fantastic, brilliant double rhyming after any of the hooks, especially the second verse after the light female voice, and it really gives a sense of kind of the world that he exists within in a panoramic snapshot kind of view. So the pain of introspection at the intersection of a crossroads, the archer selecting a direction for the arrow of my crossbow's departure. I cross fingers and cross toes to double cross a double dealer's karma. Battle, start to mark the pad, mark my words, grab attention, trouble cost an arm and a leg, lend an ear, not to mention I'm defending my head against mind-bending forces. And throughout this song, it's fantastic. And you really get the sense of the tower block. It's 4 minutes. It's quite a grimy one. It's slow paced, very chilled, very kind of midnight, but the sense of tension. Jehst is so good at ratcheting up horror, I think, as well. Ratcheting up kind of the sense of the beast within, the sense of people coming, tapping Morse code on your window pane, and the stig of the dump in the doorway, and just kind of allaying yourself to life's horror forces. And Independent is shine of that. It's not necessarily the greatest testament to that across his career, but it's a fantastic, fantastic song, which is a lot better than another kind of slight stinker, maybe, on this album, this EP. Not something that I'm too much of a fan of. Fist of the North Star, which is a posse track, I suppose. Apparently it's sampling, though, one of my favourite songwriters. I don't know if anyone's aware of the 1970s kind of astral folk of Scottish John Martin. One of my absolute heroes. I think the guy's a beautiful, beautiful genius, incredible guitar player, very troubled man, but brilliant singer-songwriter, brilliant player. Invented trip-hop, apparently. Used a lot of sampling in his work, mainly acoustic, but beautiful delay, echo. Just check out Small Hours if you want to check out a John Martin track. That is 8 minutes of your life that you will gladly spend listening to that music. It's absolutely beautiful. But so yeah, apparently John Martin, Dreams for the Sea, a song of Solid Air, another great album is used on this, and it lends itself to a slightly, again, dreamy kind of beat, that kind of aspect of floating beyond, of not being quite here or there, of kind of lost in a haze, a miasma. It's lots of different voices, but none of them too gripping. Jehst, it's annoying because, again, Jehst is not really a guest star person, but you have to kind of swallow a lot of guest stars on this EP. Jehst doesn't swan in at the end like he swanned in on Life Imitating Art to kind of wrap it all up in a bow of a good verse. He kind of leaves that to other people, and there isn't much conviction in these verses. Some of them are hard to hear, actually. And some of them, even if you hear them, not really saying much. It's not on much of a level. It feels a bit time-filling. This is the longest Jehst track, actually. This is 5 minutes 57. I couldn't find anything longer. I couldn't find anything on 6 minutes. And there's a lot of beat, a lot of verses, a lot of not saying much. It kind of gives way to a false ending as well. So it's kind of like, there is an instrumental that closes up, as I was saying, but nonetheless, there is that moment in the song where it's like, oh, is it gonna be more? Okay, well, at least it finishes, But again, Jehst is not saying anything new on this song. I didn't find his lyrics that compelling, to be honest with you. But this is, again, early shedding of skins, beginning to get into the musical career, and there's some amazing songs on this EP. Amazing songs. One of which is India, which, as I said, Evil Ed found in a charity bin for £1 of some Bollywood soundtrack. It's a gorgeously paced instrumental. It's got kind of the thrum of a meditative chant, but that's paired with soaring strings ebbing in and out of the tide. There's some subtle drums patterning on the top. It forms a brilliant swan song for the album. Whereas Eye Level was kind of indicative of kind of like hallucinogenics, perhaps, moving beyond one's existence. India is more grounded. It's more in the sense of the corporeal. It's more in the sense of moving beyond oneself in meditation, I suppose, or in music. And it does just that. I think India and Eye Level are amazing treasures. Like if you're a Jehst fan and you maybe haven't heard this debut, definitely seek those out. They're only about a minute each, but they're definitely worth putting on. They would work well in any playlist. Just have a beautiful, beautiful sound to it. Maybe the sound is a little off for people. I have read a few reviews of this, and just to sum up, a lot of people have kind of been a little bit adverse to some of the analogy kind of sounds, but this is the nature of the beast. This is what it was going to sound like, and Jess's production sound is just going to get better and better and better. Like the guy is going to pretty much exclusively do his own stuff. I know that Harry Love worked a lot with him coming up, which I can't wait to dig into as well, but mostly there was what he was doing on that front, and it was just absolutely terrific. So yeah, I can't wait to get involved in that. But thank you so much for listening. The next episode will be High Plains Drifter, of course. Absolutely incredible alcoholic author, 1979. High Plains Drifter itself, Bluebells. It's just a ridiculously good track. City of Industry is amazing as well. The whole album is sensational. I really can't wait to get involved in that. I'm not sure what the actual times or this will be. I'll try and get it out monthly, I suppose. But just check on the Battle Rap Resume channel. That's where they're going to be put on. You can follow us at Battle Rap Resume. There's also the blog, battlerapresume.wordpress.com. Also, if you want to get in touch, if anything on Jehst or Battle Rap Resume or anything in general, please battlerapresume@gmail.com. That's how you can get in touch with me, or one word. But yeah, thank you, and keep listening to Jehst. Hopefully, you've heard this episode. Maybe you want to kind of listen to the next episode and actually know what I'm talking about because you've heard the music, which I get. I do that with a needle drop all the time. Sometimes I don't know the album, but I'm like, yeah, well, I'll go back when I've heard that, and I understand that impulse. So yeah, do check out High Plains Drifter. It's on YouTube, Spotify, all those kind of avenues, of course. But thanks so much. This is Tom Quee signing out, and yeah, keep listening to Jehst.
Trying to keep it high level.